After walking for what seemed like miles through Queens, New York, I, along with a group of Miami University art students, arrived at MoMA PS1, one of the largest art institutions in the US dedicated solely to contemporary art. On show was an exhibition titled Theater of Operations, The Gulf Wars, 1991 to 2011, a large-scale group show that examined the legacies of these conflicts. It featured over 300 works by more than 80 artists based in Iraq, as well as those responding to the war from the West. Immediately after purchasing my ticket, I split off from the group. Wandering museums alone is my favorite way to view art, no one else dictating where you go, what you see, or how much time you spend studying any particular artwork. Usually, loneliness in an art museum feels comforting to me, but here, it felt eerie. This time, it was like walking through a haunted house by yourself, a horror around every corner and no one to grab onto when something frightens you. Sure, I knew that war is hell, but what I didn't realize before visiting MoMA PS1 is that the hell in question is really a catastrophic inferno. In this exhibit, I experienced the torture methods US interrogators used to disorient and break Iraqi prisoners, blasting ear-splittingly loud music at them for days, even weeks on end. I tearfully viewed children's crude artwork that responded to the everyday horrors of war. I paced from room to room, examining the works of artists that stared death in the eyes every single day. Before I entered the last room of the exhibit, a museum worker warned me that what I was about to see would be disturbing. Being curious and sure that nothing could shake me more than anything I had previously seen in this exhibit, I entered. I stood still and alone in this small, darkened room. A projector began plastering terribly graphic and upsetting images of civilian casualties from the Gulf War onto the wall. I watched the images change from one mutilated body to another. For minutes, no matter how much I wanted to look away, I couldn't. I felt compelled to absorb the horrors of war and allow those images to burn into my mind, until I couldn't anymore. I was sick. I'm not a queasy person, but in that moment I felt poisoned by what I had seen. I ran to the bathroom, knelt on the stall's floor, and through heaving breaths, talked myself down from the ledge. What just happened to me? This side of war was not shown in my history books. It was not covered in school or even on Western news broadcasts. This side of war was taught to me on that day through the most impactful medium I know, art. It is there in that exhibit that I learned that art is not always pretty. It doesn't always demonstrate the incredible technical achievements of humanity, nor does it have to. Art has every right to show the worst of mankind. Art is allowed to demonstrate the horrors of the world and the terrible things we do to one another. In my opinion, art conveys the hurt, the loss, the utter devastation of events in a way that no other medium could. Art tells stories that transcend language, race, and borders, and impacts every viewer in a unique way. Art made me sick to my stomach that day at the museum. It made me question my faith in man and changed my entire perspective on war. Though art can, at points like these, seem to break me, it never fails to challenge me, to teach me, drive me, and mold me every day of my life.